Okay, so let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like you're just on autopilot sometimes, doing things or reacting in ways you don't quite get? Or maybe wondered why some habits just stick, and others are just impossible? And what about information? Some stuff clicks right away, other things just poof, gone. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into the very organ behind all that, your brain.
It's really compelling looking at the sources you've shared for this. They give us this rich guide to understanding your brain's core operating systems. Our mission here is really to pull out the most critical, actionable insights,
Yeah.
give you a kind of powerful shortcut to being really well informed about this amazing organ that shapes so much of, well, everything.
Think of it like gaining a new perspective, almost like getting a superpower. When you understand the mechanics underneath it all, you start to recognize impulses, maybe override those unhelpful patterns, really direct your own path. So yeah, let's jump right in. Explore this incredible world inside your head. Now, when most of us picture the brain, we probably think of, the two halves, the hemispheres, or maybe the lobes you can see. But what if there's a simpler way, a really insightful way to get the core layers and how they evolved? Let's dive into Paul MacLean's triune brain model. Okay, so some of the initial theories are maybe a bit dated now, but it still gives us this incredibly useful framework for understanding why we react the way we do.
Exactly. MacLean's model, it simplifies the brain, breaks it down into three main layers that kind of reflect evolutionary development. You've got the primal brain, the limbic system, and then the prefrontal cortex. The primal brain, sometimes called the reptilian brain, it's all about your most basic instincts, the brainstem, regulating breathing, heart rate, the vital stuff, and it's deeply connected to your spinal cord. It's the oldest part, really foundational. And within this primal layer, there's the amygdala. You could call it the emotional alarm bell, critical for fear, aggression, drives those survival instincts, fight, flight, freeze. What's really crucial to get about the amygdala is its power. I mean, it can literally override your rational brain. That's what we call an amygdala hijack. Stress, fatigue, they can make you more irritable, reactive, easily triggered. It just shuts down the higher level thinking.
Oh yeah, that amygdala hijack's so relatable. I think we've all felt that surge of just irrational stuff taking over. It's almost like our primal brain has its own big red button, doesn't it?
Right.
So, okay, moving up from those basic instincts, where do emotions and memories really start to form?
Right. That brings us up to the limbic system. This is where your emotions, your feelings really come into play. It houses structures like the hypothalamus.
Right.
Think of it as a master regulator. Hormones, appetite, emotional responses. It does a lot. And then there's the hippocampus. The hippocampus is, well, it's fascinating. It's heavily involved in storing long-term memory. And here's a really critical insight for our deep dive today. It's one of the very few places in the adult brain where neurogenesis, the creation of brand new brain cells, actually happens. Super important when we talk about growth and change later.
Okay, and then finally, we get to the prefrontal cortex, the reason part of the brain, right? Your personal command center. Higher cognitive functions planning, making decisions, solving problems, even self-control. It helps you act with long-term goals in mind, which is, huge for things like delaying gratification. And it's interesting, it's the very last part of the brain to fully develop. Tells you a lot.
Yeah, and many structures, like the thalamus, that's the brain's main info hub, routing senses, or the cerebellum, crucial for movement, learning physical skills. They overlap, play roles in several systems. We haven't detailed everything, but the insular cortex, or insula, is particularly interesting too. It helps with our self-awareness, how our body and emotions interact, creating our sense of the present moment.
So we've got them incredible structures, primal reactions, rational thoughts, everything in between. But what does this actually mean for how our brains operate? Day to day, Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, he popularized a concept that's really useful here. He suggests we basically have two main operating systems guiding us.
That's a really powerful way to look at it. Think of system one as your brain's fast lane. Automatic, unconscious, very emotional. It's your autopilot. Super efficient for routine stuff like tying your shoes without thinking. System two, that's the slow lane. Effortful, logical. It's what you use for complex problems, like a tough math equation. And what's key is learning new things always starts in system two. Needs conscious effort. But with repetition, practice. Those skills eventually move over, become efficient system one stuff.
Right. System one is the autopilot. Brilliant. But when does that autopilot help? And when does it maybe lead us off track? Because there's this third player beyond system 1 and 2 called the default mode network, the DMN. It's like your brain's standby mode. Kicks in when you're not actively thinking or focused. Ever find yourself daydreaming, mind wandering in a quiet moment? That's probably the DMN.
Yeah, and what's surprising is, even though it feels like doing nothing, the DMN uses just as much energy as System 2, the effortful thinking. It's actually incredibly valuable. Replenishes mental energy, fights that ego depletion, willpower draining away, allows for introspection, mental time travel, thinking about past or future, and crucially, it's a hotbed for creativity. But, and this is important, if your internal state isn't great, a negatively focused DMN can lead straight to rumination, dwelling on regrets, failures, shame, anger. And studies clearly show that contributes to depression and anxiety. So knowing about it gives you more conscious control.
Okay, so knowing a bit about these systems, these operating modes, it really brings up the deeper question, right? Why do we do the things we do the way we do them?
Mhm.
Our sources make it super clear that most of our behavior, like almost all of it, 95 to 99 point something percent, is driven non-consciously. The vast majority is happening beneath the surface.
Absolutely. Your unconscious drivers, they basically fall into three big categories: instincts, environment, and experience. First, instincts. They're foundational. The primal need to avoid danger, which ironically makes us super resistant to change. Then there's energy deficiency. Your brain, tiny part of your weight, maybe 2%, but it hogs 20–25% of your energy. So this leads to what looks like laziness, but it's really an ancient energy saving system. Newton's first law, right? Remain at rest unless compelled to change. Applies perfectly to our comfort zones. And third, the instinct for procreation. Incredibly powerful. Can totally bypass critical thinking sometimes. Second category, your environment plays a massive role. Physical surroundings, social settings, even your physiology at the moment. And finally, experience, governed by two simple but profound rules. What gives us pleasure, we repeat it. What gives us displeasure, we avoid it. And it's worth noting that drive to avoid displeasure, often way stronger than the drive for pleasure.
Wow. Okay, so our brain is constantly reacting, adapting to all these drivers. And when we talk brain function, we absolutely have to talk about the internal communication, right? The chemical messengers, neurotransmitters, they influence so much mood, motivation, actions.
Definitely. Take dopamine. That's all about reward, anticipation. It's the chemical driving us towards goals, doing more things. But here's the kicker. It doesn't necessarily bring more satisfaction from the same things over time. That's hedonic adaptation. We need more stimulation, more novelty to get the same fun feeling. And this can get pretty dangerous with behavioral addictions, gambling, smartphones. The receptors just demand more and more. Then you've got serotonin. It acts like a vital mood stabilizer. Keeps things, level. Adrenaline, often linked with testosterone, gives those short bursts. Focus, strength, classic fight or flight stuff. Oxytocin, the love hormone, often linked with estrogen. Crucial for connection, calming you down. But the sources point out oxytocin can be a double-edged sword. It reinforces bonds within your group powerfully, but it can also subtly create separation, division with outside groups. It might contribute to things like racism, nationalism. The perspective offered is to bridge those gaps. We need to actively show how much more we have in common. Other important ones, GABA acts like the brake pedal, slows things down, promotes calm. And glutamine, kind of the opposite, the accelerator. Excitatory, crucial for learning and memory.
It's truly amazing how wired for connection we are, even neurologically. Like, have you ever winced when someone else got hurt? Almost felt it yourself. That could be your mirror neurons firing up. They activate the same brain parts as if we were experiencing it, a basis for empathy.
Yeah, and this connects directly to what's called theory of mind, TOX, and that's your rational ability to really put yourself in someone else's shoes, understand their perspective. It's that complex thought, like, I think she thinks that he thinks.
It's you!
Needs the prefrontal cortex working hard. It's something kids aren't fully capable of yet, shows how sophisticated it is.
Incredible. And these brain mechanisms, they really shape our social lives, don't they? Sometimes locking us into patterns, even unhelpful ones, like the Cartman drama triangle, people falling into victim, savior, perpetrator roles without realizing it. Our sources seem to suggest that spotting that initial System 1 reaction, that autopilot response, is key to navigating these things more consciously. Okay, so we've got the brain parts, the operating systems, but here's where it gets, I think, even more exciting. Your brain isn't static, not at all. It has this incredible lifelong ability to grow and change, starting with neurogenesis, the actual creation of new brain cells, neurons, glial cells, the whole shebang.
Right. And what's really exciting is how much your choices impact this. Lifestyle choices can dramatically boost neurogenesis. You could produce up to 5 times more new neurons. We know low neurogenesis is linked to negative states, depression, anxiety, stress, even chemo brain. On the flip side, high neurogenesis, better memory focus, a healthier, more resilient, more optimistic brain. And a new neuron takes about 3 weeks to develop, so you could literally be growing your brain right now.
That's so powerful, knowing we have that agency. So what can we actively do to boost neurogenesis, build a healthier brain? Our sources give us 6 essential pillars. There's a helpful acronym, LMNNOP.
Yeah, LMNNOP. Let's break it down. L is for love, social connections, absolutely vital for brain health. M is for movement, exercise, powerful stuff for new brain cell growth. First N is novelty, new experiences. The brain awakens with the new, as they say. Formal learning, challenging yourself builds cognitive reserve.
Hmm.
Second N is nature. Being in nature has a profound calming effect on the amygdala. Also includes things like getting enough vitamin D, staying hydrated. Interestingly, constant city living can actually lower neurogenesis rates. O is for omega-3 and healthy fats, fresh whole food diet, essential building blocks. And P is for pauses, including crucial sleep. Aim for 7 to 9 hours. During REM sleep, your brain does this vital detox, clearing out beta amyloid, which is linked to neurocognitive diseases. Clearing it makes info easier to access next day.
Okay, LMNNOP, love it. Beyond those pillars, though, there are also specific brain boosters and brain killers, right? Things with a direct impact.
Exactly. 2 main brain boosters. Meditation, even 8-week mindfulness programs show significant improvement in neurogenesis. And music stimulates neurogenesis, releases dopamine. Any music you enjoy works. Singing or playing an instrument, even better. On the flip side, the 3 big brain killers. First, stress. Chronic cortisol literally kills brain cells, especially in the hippocampus. Fortunately, movement, even crying, can help release cortisol. Second, addiction. Alcohol is the strongest known inhibitor of neurogenesis. And third, head blows. Think contact sports like rugby, boxing can lead to long-term inflammation, damage.
Wow. Okay, this leads us perfectly into neuroplasticity, which is your brain's incredible lifelong power to learn, adapt, change its structure, its function. It's not just making new cells, but how existing networks reform themselves.
That's the really exciting part. And what's compelling is, while it happens everywhere, the newer brain parts tend to be more plastic. They adapt more readily. There are 3 core rules to grasp here. First, we become better when we repeat and focus. Your brain doesn't judge good or bad. Repeat something with focus. It thinks, important. Builds stronger pathways. Makes learning less about brute effort, more about consistent focus. Visualization can even help prepare the brain. Second rule, neurons that fire together wire together. Hebb's law. This means linking pleasant things with new habits makes them way easier to form. And we remember things better through associations. Connect something new to what you know. Sticks better. Third rule, use it or lose it. Synaptic connections not used, they disconnect. Pruning. Sounds bad maybe, but it can be a blessing. Lets us forget what's no longer useful. Clear space for new learning.
So what does this mean for you, trying to change habits, those things that feel so ingrained? Our sources break habits down neatly, cue the trigger, routine the action, reward that dopamine hit. Understanding those steps is key to consciously changing behaviors. It can even lead to an identity shift, like thinking I am a jogger instead of just I'm trying to start jogging.
Precisely. And remember, extrinsic motivation, doing it for external rewards, can actually lower intrinsic motivation. So try to focus on the inherent joy or value in the activity itself. Also, simple stuff. Make desired actions easy. Undesired ones, make them difficult. This brings up a critical question. How can we create these enriched environments to really maximize our brain's power? Well, the answer lies in getting enough movement, consistent social contact, and regular cognitive stimulation like formal learning. Now, the brain is super plastic before myelination, especially up to around age 24 when the prefrontal cortex fully matures. But it's about balance throughout life. Too little stimulation, impoverished environment, too much, chronic stress, cortisol. The key is finding that friction, gently pushing ourselves, learning, developing, even failing forward, embracing mistakes as part of growth.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the mental shortcuts our brains love to take. Our super efficient System 1 thinking loves cutting corners. Often helpful, sure. But this can lead to what we call cognitive biases. There are hundreds. And they can seriously influence our perceptions, our decisions, without us even noticing.
Yeah, this is crucial. How do these biases actually show up? Take in-group favoritism. We unconsciously like people from our group more. And as we said, oxytocin, while great for bonding, can subtly create division with outgroups. Then there's confirmation bias. Your brain's reticular activating system, the RAS, kind of amplifies this. You actively seek out and give more weight to info that confirms what you already believe. Makes it really hard to challenge those beliefs or consider other views. Think about your newsfeed, another fascinating one. The Dunning-Kruger effect. This paradox had actually got its researchers a Nobel Prize for making people laugh, then think. It shows that the less you know about something, often the more confident you are in your expertise. Oof. A good reminder for humility, right? And the sunk cost fallacy. This is where we keep investing in something, time, effort, money, just because we already put so much in. even if objectively it's not working or it's not the best path anymore. Like staying in a terrible movie just because you paid for the ticket. Oh, they're everywhere. The IKEA effect, we value things more if we help create them. That sense of ownership. And the Pygmalion and Gollum effects show how our expectations can profoundly influence how others perform. Super powerful in leadership, teaching, parenting. Expect someone to succeed. You subtly create an environment where they're more likely to. This links straight to Carol Dweck's growth mindset, focusing feedback on effort and progress, not just innate talent.
Right, it's clear how these biases work, and they often seem to spring from our limiting beliefs, don't they? Those deep-seated mental models we build about the world. Our brain, running mostly on System 1, predicts the future based on these models. And the challenge is, it tends to stick to them, even if they're not totally accurate. That drive to be consistent with our beliefs, even flawed ones, that's cognitive dissonance.
That's a key insight, yeah. The trigger for a behavior, often neutral. It's our interpretation that gives it the emotional color. And those interpretations, often echoes from the past, especially childhood, when our prefrontal cortex wasn't fully online. Jung even said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So to tackle limiting beliefs, you need a reframing process. First, recognize no situation has inherent emotion tied to it. Then identify the belief, challenge it with evidence, seek new perspectives, and finally reformulate it. Maybe just adding yet to something you think you can't do. I can't do that yet. This whole process connects directly to grit, as Angela Duckworth describes it. That mix of passion and perseverance for long-term goals, sticking with it despite setbacks.
And when we face adversity challenges, our brain naturally uses compensation mechanisms, right? Ways to cope. These can be healthy strategies or less healthy ones.
Exactly. Our sources list 4 healthy ways: trying harder, perseverance, pivoting, changing course, maybe using humor to reframe, cutting your losses, knowing when to stop, and seeking social support, that tend and befriend response involving oxytocin. But compensations become unhealthy when they end up hurting you or hurting others. Think overcompensation, like obsession. Perfectionism gives a false sense of control. Or denial, substance abuse, or aggression, bragging, belittling others, trying to build yourself up by tearing others down. Even withdrawing socially or being a chronic people pleaser can be unhealthy ways of compensating, often driven by insecurity.
This leads us to another really powerful concept, projections. As the sources put it, we don't see the world as it is, but as we are. We're constantly, often unconsciously, filling in the gaps about other people with our own stuff, our own prior info, our unrecognized bits.
Spot on. There are 3 main types. First, fantasy projections. Idealizing someone, like in first love, often making them responsible for our happiness. Big burden. Second, echo ghost projections. Based on our own past negative experiences, then unconsciously slapped onto the present situation or person. And third, mirror shadow projections. Seeing in others what's actually inside us, often stuff we're not proud of or don't even see in ourselves. Fantasy projections. They often follow 5 stages. Idealization. They're perfect. Disillusionment, reality bites. Double down, trying to fix or control them. Withdrawal. And finally, ideally, becoming conscious, engaging system 2, accepting them as they are. This links to transference too, applying old relationship patterns onto new people.
Okay, so finally, our deep dive brings us to the ego, not just in the everyday sense of being arrogant, but maybe more technically. Carl Jung saw the ego as how we truly are, deep down, surrounded by a persona, the mask, the image we project.
Right. And the bigger the gap between your persona and your actual ego, the more cognitive dissonance, anxiety, maybe imposter syndrome you feel. The ego, by nature, is fragile. It constantly needs external validation, appraisal. It's rooted in an old survival strategy from when human groups were small, maybe 150, 200 people. You had to prove your value by comparison. But in today's world of 7 billion, constant comparison as well, it's a losing game. You'll never be the best at everything compared to everyone. It's exhausting. So the real question is, how do we manage this very human, but maybe somewhat obsolete system? The ego projects success, constantly compares, wants to own things, ties ownership to self-worth, and it's never really satisfied, always wants more. To manage it, first step, bring it into conscious awareness, notice it, then identify those toxic thinking patterns, the comparison, the needing validation, and crucially, compare only to your past self. Are you growing? Learning. That's the measure. Focus on intrinsic motivation, the joy in the do, not the external applause. The moment you compare yourself to others, you kind of lose. You lose your peace.
Wow, so wrapping this all up, what does this deep dive mean for you navigating your own world? We've journeyed through these intricate brain networks, right? Primal instincts, prefrontal power, boosters, biases. It really seems to circle back to the central, powerful idea from the sources, that old story of the 2 wolves.
Absolutely. It's such a potent metaphor. Which wolf are you feeding? Will you feed the wolf of your amygdala? Constantly triggered, fragile, needing unhealthy compensations like status or manipulation? Or will you consciously choose to feed the wolf of your prefrontal cortex, empowering your brain for self-control, inner peace, enthusiasm, real optimism? The difference between a villain and a superhero often lies in how they choose to compensate for adversity. Knowing that and knowing neuroplasticity's first rule, we get better at what we repeat and focus on that really empowers you.
Yeah, your brain isn't fixed. It's constantly learning, rewiring based on where you put your focus, your experiences. This deep dive, I think, really shows that awareness is your superpower. The moment you become aware of those unconscious drivers, you gain the ability, the power to override them. You can reframe limiting beliefs, manage projections, choose healthier ways to cope. You get to direct your own story.
Ultimately, yeah, as C.G. Jung famously put it, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your brain is this dynamic landscape shaped by your actions, your thoughts, your environment. Understanding its mechanisms, it's not just about gaining cool knowledge, it's about gaining agency, real agency over your own fate, and continually building a more resilient, more empowered, and ultimately more self-aware you.